Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. What do we got today, Ricardo?
We got our Week 4 waiver wire show.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
We are full-fledged into the NFL season. Week 3 is in the... You know, I sound really happy, but I'm just so disappointed.
Why is that?
Our league still has kickers and defenses, and I got shanked this week. One of our league mates just took a piece of plastic or a plastic fork in prison and just shaved it away, and then saw me down the hall and stabbed me right in the chest.
Oh, wow, that's pretty gruesome. Yeah. One of the people in our league who was playing against Morgan picked up a defense for what, $3?
$3. My bid was $3 as well.
You both bid $3?
We both bid $3, and because he was worse than me, he got the player.
And then you lost.
I lost because of the defense.
25 points.
Well,
I mean, you could have picked up.
To be fair,
Buccaneers defense.
Yeah,
like
I'm not
up to like Friday.
My hatred of the Bucs stands, and I couldn't do it. Los Angeles was not a bad choice.
Who were they playing? Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not awful. I mean, Carolina
did good 5 minutes into the game, but I'm done with the Chargers, D. See you later. Bye-bye. Do they have a good matchup this week? I might.
If they're playing the Patriots. Not Patriots. They're playing the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to start them then. I'm dropping them right away. And then I had... literally, I think I outscored him at every single position with the exception of flex, which was a tie, essentially. And the only reason why he won was because of his kicker. His kicker was outscoring me, and his defense was outscoring me. So I'm so frustrated. I hate kickers and defense. Literally, if we had 2 extra flexes in our league, I would have had Tyler Boyd and Kareem Hunt, and I would have won.
Yeah, but we don't.
I hate kickers and defense.
You got to play to the league rules, bro.
Yeah, I play to the league rules, but I hate when I can't predict the league rules.
Then get rid of the rules.
I had it right. You tell me to go out and pick up the Bucs. I had it right. I had the Colts all day long.
Yeah, the Colts would have. I tried to pick them up too, but you got to adapt, bro.
You got to adapt. Yeah, it is frustrating when you have the superior team and you lose because of a defense. But anyway, to be fair, this is recorded on Monday. And I have Travis Kelce tonight.
Oh, you're playing against Travis Kelce.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm playing against Travis Kelce.
Yeah, he just needs to score 7 points.
He just needs to score. If he scores under 6.56 points, I win.
That's very realistic.
And half with the R. So my hope is that he either comes in and just I'm not hoping for any injuries here. I'm really not. But a minor tweak. Where they're we're just going to keep him safe. We're not going to let him go. And I get the much deserved win.
You're walking on a tough line here.
Yeah. No, I probably will lose. But, hey, it is what it is. It's fantasy football. As Rick said, you have to adapt and adjust.
Can't win them all.
You can't win. I'd like to. I'd freaking like to. So today we have waiver wire targets for week 4, headed into week 4 as you prepare for your week. Before we do that, be sure to check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps, on Instagram @TheFantasyChampions. You can like us at Facebook.com/TheFantasyChampions. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please subscribe. Please, please, please subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps the podcast. It helps everything. So we can get more. The more you guys help us, the more we can bring you content, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, same stuff. Subscribe. Click the bell for notifications so you get notifications of whenever we post a video. And then like and comment down below any questions you may have for the waiver wire this week. So let's jump right into the waiver wire after my tangent about how much I hate kickers and defense. I would advocate every league just get rid of kickers. Why do we have
not
kickers
have
and
a
defense?
word from our sponsor this week?
We do not.
Oh, okay.
I would advocate getting rid of kickers and defense. In every league.
Yeah, this is
it's because I've lost 2 playoff games in the last 3 years to kickers. And this week I just lost. It's a sour topic.
As big of an issue until you lose to them, though.
And I'm the commissioner, so I changed the rules.
Yeah, you can. That's why I said you could totally just change the rules.
Get a league vote. So now I'm going to start canvassing individuals or getting their vote before next season so I can get rid of these. If I lose in the playoffs this year to a kicker or a defense, I start the process now. I'll take a vote now so that people won't remember, and then when I switch it, they'll all be pissed.
They'll be like, hey, what's up with the new rule change?
Tip number 1 for fantasy football. Don't be a shady commissioner like myself.
Yeah, don't be like Morgan.
To be fair, I'm not that shady, but being the commissioner requires a lot of people hating you. You can ask Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
So let's talk about waiver wire ads. We're going to go quickly through quarterbacks and probably quickly through tight ends. We spent a lot of time on quarterbacks, so that's entirely unnecessary. There's a couple of guys out on the market. Obviously, this is on 20% own, 50% ownership. Let me pull up my phone so I can look at Sleeper too, see what we got on the market and on average. But anyway,
that's what I'm doing here.
So we have a couple of guys. Kirk Cousins is one. You are avid. 2 years ago, you were an avid supporter of Kirk Cousins. Last year, you were like, Cousins is trash. Now, you are still on the Cousins is trash train. But
I won't let go.
He won't let go. He had 22 points against Green Bay. Indianapolis has had a pretty impressive defense to start the season. I would tell you, they are going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. But anyway, so against Green Bay, Kirk Cousins had 22 points. Against Tennessee, he had 20, minus a couple of points because of our wacky touchdown scoring in our league. I'm looking at the wrong stats. We have 5-point touchdowns.
I can pull up.
Forgive me. Don't worry about it. Anyway, he's had some decent weeks. Next week he's going out against Houston, and that's going to be a game where I would think that they're going to have to score some points. So is it worth picking up Kirk Cousins as a stream this week if you need a quarterback? Because obviously, to me, long term, this is not I'm going to pick him up and hold him on my team for a while. This is I need a stream option this week, so let me go get Kirk Cousins.
I mean, as a stream option, I guess he works fine.
You always say I guess.
It's because he's one of my least favorite quarterbacks in the whole league, honestly. But that week, I know the Colts have a decent defense.
Yeah.
But man, he was so bad. He was 11 for 26.
That's
113 passing yards and 3 interceptions.
Disgusting.
And even last week he did 20 fantasy points. It's not bad. But he was still he threw 2 interceptions in that game.
Yeah.
He was okay. He was better. That was probably his best game of the season. He still threw 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
But against Houston, I think he could probably get 15 to 20 points. And if you want to stream him, I think he's a fine stream just for this week. But I still think there might be better options out there.
As far as streaming options, I did want to bring up Roethlisberger. Don't stream him. He's going up against Tennessee. You'll probably have Baker on your waiver wire. I would avoid that catastrophe altogether.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can think of is so Herbert has been okay in his starts. Game 1 was a lot better than game 2. I'll say that. To be fair, Carolina's defense is not that good either. He threw it 49 times though. Against Carolina this week, 330 yards. He did throw a touchdown and an interception, but the difference between Herbert scoring 23 fantasy points and Herbert not scoring 23 fantasy points was his rushing. He scored a rushing touchdown in week 2 against Kansas City. This week, he wasn't able to pull off the rushing touchdown and had slightly less rushing yards. So in terms of what Herbert was able, I think he also turned the ball over. I can't remember. Was it a fumble or an interception?
This week against Carolina, he had both.
He had a fumble and an interception. Yeah. So because of some of those variables, he didn't score as many fantasy points, but getting 300 yards in 2 straight games as your starting quarterback in your first 2 games in the NFL is pretty crazy. So I this week he's going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been a little bit better defensively. They actually don't look too bad. They've been good for fantasy. I don't know in real life, but this is going to be a game where Herbert's probably going to throw another 45 passes if he plays. So is this a guy that you would pick up off the waiver wire?
I don't know. Tampa's defense has been good all year. Like in not just fantasy, but in real life, they have been a very solid defense. And I just don't know. I feel like Herbert's going to be closer to what he was in week 3 than what he was in week 2. I think he's kind of going to be like a Daniel Jones from last year, where he's going to have weeks because of his rushing that'll get him up to like 20 points, 20 plus points.
But it'll be like,
he's a great week.
Yeah. Did you reference Daniel Jones of last year?
What'd you say?
Did you reference Daniel Jones of last year just a second ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I was just about to say that, but I wanted to make sure you said it because I missed it.
Yeah, he just reminds me of a lot of that. Yeah. I don't know. I would honestly this week might rather have Kirk Cousins, which is crazy to say. It's tough with the matchup. Yeah. With Tampa. I do think he'll be okay though. I don't see him getting, with the amount of times he throws the ball, he's going to have a good floor week to week. It's just I don't really see him getting 20 plus points a week unless he gets a rushing touchdown. Fair enough. Final guy that we'll talk about at the quarterback position, Nicholas Foles, who came in replacement. I did want to note on Herbert. Did you know Keenan Allen this week had 19 targets? Yeah. Herbert is very good for Keenan Allen's stock. I'd go out and buy Keenan Allen if you can. Mike Williams did get hurt, though. Okay. The second quarter. That's fair enough. But anyway, Nick Foles came in, I believe it was halfway through the game. Yeah. Was it the third quarter? Was it the third quarter? I think it was the beginning of the third quarter. Regardless, Nick Foles scored 18 fantasy points in the second half. So he had 3 touchdowns, 188 yards. He was relatively decent in that time. I don't know that he's going to throw 3 touchdowns ever. Not that I think it's unthinkable. He almost had 4 touchdowns, by the way. 1 was ripped out of Allen Robinson's hands. Yeah. So he could have had 4, but he looked pretty good. He's going up against Indianapolis this week. I think for speculation purposes, if you have an extra roster spot, add Nick Foles for now just to see what happens. I don't think it's a bad ad. But I don't this particular week, I wouldn't even come close to starting him. Maybe against Tampa or Carolina in the following weeks. But for this week against Indianapolis, it's going to be tough. Yeah, he might be worth a pickup, but I'm not really trying to start him against the Colts either. Yeah, agreed. Let's move on to running backs. We have a couple of backs here that could be of use to your team. We're starting to hit that point in the season where some, I guess running backs, the breakout ones are probably headed away. You might have 1 or 2 guys that are superior breakout running backs. But I think the only one that was really a big waiver wire breakout was probably James Robinson at this point. So anyway, you had a couple of interesting performances this week. With the number 1 waiver wire pickup for the week, I would say is probably Carlos Hyde. Considering that Chris Carson did go down on Sunday Night Football. Did you watch that play? Yeah. I wasn't on Sunday night. I'm sorry. It was at 4:25. Did you watch that play, though, with the barrel roll? I saw the play, yeah. It was not good. Yeah, it was kind of, the guy should probably be suspended for at least 1 game. I don't know if he should be suspended, but that's a cheap move. It is kind of cheap. I think a fine, probably. So the preliminary reports are that Chris Carson can play this week if he has a good week.
Everything came back clean on his scheduled. I don't even know what you want to call it, but when they looked at his knee, everything came back good, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it's just a sprain, and he's probably going to play this upcoming week. But are you interested in the speculative ad of Carlos Hyde if Chris Carson does miss time?
Oh, if Chris Carson misses time, 100%. And even if he's only out just for this week and he comes back in week 5, I think Carson might be worth an ad for teams that have bench spots available.
You mean Hyde?
What is it?
I said you mean Hyde.
Oh, did I not say Hyde?
You said Carson.
Oh, well, I meant Hyde. I think would be worth an ad this week if you have a bench spot available, just because of his matchup. If Carson does miss this week against Miami, the Seahawks should kill the Dolphins and probably. Well, I mean with that offense, they'll probably get a lead early, and the second half might just run the ball and run out the clock. I think Carlos Hyde could have. If Carson misses time, like it just even this week, could have like a week where he gets like 20 carries, 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. So, I mean, you could throw him in your flex spot for this week. And so just for this week, he's worth a pickup, I think. And I think that's worth it even to just have him for 1 week.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because he could help you when you're weak.
For me, I like I said, I don't see the waiver wire is confusing for me because I'm always looking for upside. And Hyde is I need a running back to play in my flex or my RB2's out, and I need a guy.
Well, if you have Chris Carson,
right?
Christian McCaffrey, if you have one of these players that's been hurt, Raheem Mostert.
There is a group of players in fantasy football, a very large group of players who overspend for backup running backs who come in to start for a hurt running back starter.
Yes.
People unloaded like $70, $80 in our league for Wayne Gallman last year when
Barkley got the ankle sprain.
Yeah. So bad memories now with Barkley coming up into conversation, but Hyde is the same way. Like I would not spend more than $20 on Hyde. No. If you're at I'm assuming $200 waiver budget. So I would not spend more than $20 on Hyde. I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either.
You're spending it for like 1 week. So it's not really worth it.
If you have a good bench already, I don't think he's worth a pickup. But if you need like a running back, especially for this week, then he is worth a pickup. If Carson doesn't play. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the difference though between Hyde and Gallman is Hyde is, I think, a better running back and on a better offense.
Oh yeah, it's a run agreed. Team. I mean, he was the starting running back in Houston for the entire season last year. So
right, majority of the season. There's definitely some different factors, but yeah, I mean, you don't go out spending a lot of money on Carson.
So for the second guy on our list, Jeff Wilson Jr., I would actually put him in the same box as Carlos Hyde because he's another guy, 20 points this week. It was funny. I picked up Jerick McKinnon. I told everyone to pick up Jerick McKinnon. Then later in the week, I realized it's probably going to be Jeff Wilson who gets the majority of the fantasy points. And so I was going to pick him up, and then I chose not to. But I traded away Jerick McKinnon for Deebo Samuel. So I hope that pans out.
I don't know how you got that.
But Jeffrey Wilson Jr. comes away with 20 fantasy points as we get 12 rushes for only 15 yards. Absolute gag. But he had a rushing touchdown, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 54 yards and another touchdown. So he had 2 touchdowns, comes away with a 20-point week. I don't think Jeff Wilson Jr. is good. I don't think he's going to get any kind of playing time in the San Francisco 49ers offense once Raheem Mostert gets back in, whether it's this week or next week, and you also get the return of Tevin Coleman. So he's going to be relegated to Jerick McKinnon had a role in this offense with those 2 in the lineup. Wilson didn't. So I think Wilson just disappears. I would not waste FOB on him at all.
Agreed.
I would a little bit on Carlos Hyde, but Jeff Wilson Jr., no.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. Jeff Wilson, I mean, he had a very poor game. I know fantasy-wise he had 20 points, but 12 carries, 15 yards.
That's gross.
He was good in the passing game, but when Mostert comes back, I don't think there's going to be a need for Jeff Wilson on that team. He'll still get a few touches until Coleman gets back as well, but Not trying to really spend any money on a guy who's the third running back right now for San Francisco.
Another guy we have at the running back position, Rex Burkhead. Now, this is not unsurprising. And knowing how much the Patriots would run the ball, hear me out on this. I actually don't think Rex Burkhead is a horrible ad. And here's why. Sony Michel's getting...
You had me in the first half.
So Sony Michel is getting... He's going to get... With this performance... I don't like Rex Burkhead. I'll tell you that. Like, I'm not a huge fan. Fantasy-wise, I'm not a huge fan. Regular Patriots fan-wise, Burkhead, best running back in the NFL. No. So, anyway, he had 3 rushing touchdowns in the game. It's clear that when Cam Newton is not going to do an RPO into the end zone, it's going to be Burkhead. And I think he's going to get the red zone work. Now, I don't think he's going to score 20 touchdowns this year. But he did have the last 2 weeks without James White. He had 6 targets for 4 receptions and 10 targets for 7 receptions.
Right.
That's so shocking. Now, White's coming back, so the pass catching work will not be there for Burkhead. But I think if you pick him up and you need to start a running back, like next week they play Kansas City, I feel like there's going to be some opportunities for Burkhead to get some goal line touchdowns. So it's going to be a touchdown upside game where if you don't get the touchdowns, you're going to get 3 fantasy points, and you just need to accept it. So I'm not saying start him. I'm just saying pick him up. He's worth a flex start if you need him against a good matchup where they may be running the football a lot.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not trying to pick up Rex Burkhead at all.
Those Patriots players, man.
By far last on my list.
Okay.
Sony Michel was the better running back. I think he's
not going to get any goal line work. The New England Patriots don't give him any.
I think you're mixing up goal line and red zone. I think goal line Sony will get work. I think red zone.
He didn't though.
They didn't really have many goal line situations.
They did. They had 3. They all went to Burkhead.
They were at the 5-yard line, like the 9-yard line.
I guess.
Let's see, his 2 touchdowns. They weren't like goal line is a little different. They'll give it to Sony and just try to pound it in. But I guess you can even if you believe he's run touchdown dependent and all that. I think when James White comes back, because he's been filling the James White role of passing game, he's going to go back to getting 3 fantasy points a week.
Okay.
I there's other guys that I would rather have than Rex Burkhead.
Take both arguments as you will. We both kind of just said the same thing, except I said he has touchdown upside. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt. Let's move on to wide receivers. Justin Jefferson absolutely going ham this week. What did he score? 20-something fantasy points?
27 and half
PPR. So he got target share this week. The first 2 weeks of the season are what concerned me. He had 3 targets in each game. This game, he happened to have 9. The question is, does this trend continue? I think the 9 targets in this game is enough for me to pick him up and add him to my roster as a speculation ad, if that makes sense. I'm not picking him up to start him this week. I'm not picking him up to throw him in my lineup because people are going to pick him up. And the first question we get next week and starts and sits is, should I start Justin Jefferson this week against this team? I hate when people you get one good week out of a player and it's like they automatically jump to starting him. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
So Jefferson's speculative. I would spend $30 to $35 on him just for the potential that he is going to fill the Stefon Diggs role. Obviously, the 27 fantasy points is a lot, but 175 freaking receiving yards, that's absolutely asinine. So it should be interesting to see how they continue to utilize him. If he continues to get the target share, I actually think he can have a really good rookie season. But it depends entirely on that target share.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I think for me, I'm a big Justin Jefferson fan. And it's partly due to the fact that I think the first 2 weeks of the season, they were kind of easing him in to the lineup.
Right.
As a rookie. I mean, before the game, Gary Kubiak said that Justin Jefferson role, quote, should increase as the season progresses. And this was before the game. And then he went out and did what he did. So I think as the year goes on, he's really, as you said, going to take over that Diggs' role, and they just wanted to ease him into it and start him off the season as a wide receiver 3 for the first few weeks. And I think last year, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure A.J. Brown started pretty slow, and then he took off.
And then he took off, yeah. That always happens.
Season, he had I think, how many is that? 13 or he had 11 fantasy points, 5 fantasy points, and 1 fantasy point in the first 3 weeks of the season. And then he took off. And then the next week 4, A.J. Brown had he had 2 touchdowns and 94 yards. So it took him a few weeks to get going. I think Metcalf was similar last year. Actually, Metcalf was good from the start. So never mind what Metcalf. Okay, A.J. Brown kind of took him a few games. I think Justin Jefferson is going to be the same thing. And now
rookie wide receivers take at least 4 to 5
even
weeks.
The good ones.
Even the good ones. It takes them a little bit to get started. Right. Especially in a COVID year where there's been absolutely no opportunity for people to actually, I guess, get moving because they usually have a ton of reps in the preseason. So it's like, it's going to take a little bit. I'm noticing that offenses look a little bit clunkier. They're still moving the ball. The good ones are moving the ball, but a lot of people are having trouble getting certain players involved in the early going. So that's because of the preseason. But Justin Jefferson, definitely worth an add. Next guy, Brandon Ayuk. Relatively interesting. He's 21% owned right now. So there's a good chance that people in your league already own this guy. But Ayuk scored his first touchdown on Sunday. Now, obviously, there's speculation that Debo comes back week 5. So when that does happen, I don't know how much value Brandon Ayuk will bring, but he had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 70 yards. He also had 3 rushes for 31 yards and a touchdown. So he kind of, the 49ers like to use their wide receivers in the rushing game in certain aspects, using, trick plays, end arounds, all kinds of stuff. You saw it last year with Debo. You're seeing it a little bit with Ayuk this year. He already has, I think it was just that game they got him involved, but game 1, he didn't even play. I think he was inactive.
No, week 1, he did not play. He was injured.
And then week 2, he came in, he only has three targets in that game. And then he has 8 targets, 3 rushes. So he got his opportunities in this game. Like I said, similar situation, Justin Jefferson. I like Justin Jefferson a little bit more. But Ayuk, I think, is worth a add as well, just because of the opportunity that he may have. If the opportunity is not there, you just drop him next week, But pick him up, see if he gets opportunity next week, and then just continue rolling with it.
Yeah, so, I think Ayuk's worth a pickup. No, I wouldn't put him in the same level as Justin Jefferson, just because because Kittle didn't play either. So when Kittle and Debo come back and that team is fully healthy on offense, how much action is Ayuk actually going to get? Well, Jefferson is on a team they're pretty much completely healthy on offense. And I think he has the opportunity to be the wide receiver 2 on that team. And maybe even compete with Thielen as the wide receiver 1. While Ayuk is more going to be the second, third option on the team. But still, I think is worth a pickup. And he looked really solid last week, and I think they're going to use him throughout the season. It's just a matter of how much.
Now, we have another interesting one, because we got to quickly move through some of this stuff. But Alshon Jeffery is coming back very soon, according to reports. He could make his debut in week 4 against San Francisco. But that probably won't happen. It'll probably be week 5 or 6 would be my guess. The Eagles desperately need a wide receiver, anybody at this point. So as soon as he comes back, you could expect a good target share from him. He's owned in 14% of leagues. Most leagues probably just dropped him out of, he's not playing. When you drafted him, you probably knew that he wasn't going to play. So I don't understand why you drafted him to begin with if you're going to drop him.
A deep league.
But anyway, But anyway, so Alshon Jeffery is coming back. He's been good when he's on the field, but he struggles with injuries, obviously. He has other situations that kind of are killer to his efficiency, I guess. But I think he's worth the ad just to see what happens if he's available in your league. He's definitely worth being owned because he would be the number 1 wide receiver on the Philadelphia Eagles when he steps onto the field. So, and then especially with Deshaun Jackson having some issues with injuries as well, Jeffrey coming in, I would expect them to get a good target share.
Yeah. I think right away Jeffrey could come in and get a decent target share.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he's going to be long term with his injury history, and then when Rieger comes back too, and that offense has just kind of been gross anyway this year. But I think initially they're kind of in desperate need of a wide receiver boost, like you said. So we could see some targets early on for Jeffrey. I think he's worth a pickup. But honestly, I'd probably rather pick up Jefferson or Ayuk and take the chance with their upside. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And then the final guy that we'll reference for this sake of this podcast, so the other guys, Chenault's had some rushing work. He didn't have really a good week this week, but I think that was just a negative game script affecting his play. You can drop him if you want. I don't think anybody's going to pick him up. But I'd keep an eye on him. Scotty Miller has good weeks and bad weeks, I guess.
He was better with Chris Godwin than without, which made no sense. But.
Definitely. Curtis Samuel, he's been okay, but they're not really utilizing him the way that you would like to see. He's kind of falling into a dead zone.
Yeah,
I guess.
He's like a good 4 or 5 catches a game for like 45 yards.
Yeah, but the final. I'm sorry. Finish.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say his upside's kind of limited.
So the final guy that we will talk about is T. Higgins. At least the wide receiver position. We'll blow through tight ends like nobody's business. But anyway, so Higgins it's interesting because this particular week, AJ Green, I want to pull up his target share because he's been getting a mass load of target share. And this particular week he had 6 targets. So they dropped his target share from 9 and 13 targets in the first 2 weeks to 6. And guys that overtook him were Tyler Boyd with 13 targets and T. Higgins, the rookie wide receiver, who had a total of 9 targets in the game. T. Higgins has jumped. AJ Green still does, if at worst, the second wide receiver on the team. But what's interesting is T. Higgins has jumped John Ross on the roster. Yeah. So Ross is gone essentially, 5th on the roster now and the depth chart. So Higgins is going to start. Not start, but he's going to be the 3rd wide receiver. He'll probably get a decent target share on a week-to-week basis. 9 targets, 5 receptions for 40 yards. He also had 2 touchdown catches in the game. So if Joe Burrow really likes throwing it to this kid, I could see an increase in value for him. I don't know that I would pick him up this week.
Yeah.
But I would just keep an eye on him and see maybe if you have an extra roster spot, pick him up for now and hold him on, like I said, hold him on your bench and see what happens. And if the target share continues to be there, of these 3 rookies that are being talked about right now, he's probably my least favorite. Just because he like Ayuk's number 1 in that offense right now. Maybe 2 behind Kendrick Bourne, and then Justin Jefferson's 2 behind Adam Thielen. So for Higgins, he's 3, maybe 4. And I don't know if this is going to continue for him. So it's definitely speculation. All of these ads are speculation at this point.
If he gets 9 targets a week, he's going to be worth an ad. But the problem is I don't know if he's going to get that. A week with AJ Green and Tyler Boyd still, I think, ahead of him on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. But it is a situation to keep your eye on because he could very well overtake Green as the season goes on.
Agreed. Tight ends real quick. Eric Ebron. I don't like any of these tight ends, to be honest with you. You stream tight ends, you're dead. People, were pegging Eric Ebron as a guy who was going to get a lot of target share in this offense for the Steelers. He did have a good week, 13 fantasy points, 7 targets, 5 receptions. It is a little bit grosser, but I do think that against particular matchups, Ebron is a good stream.
Sure.
Against Tennessee this upcoming week, I'm not really sure that's a good streaming option.
I love that matchup.
But anyway, he has an interesting. I just completely unplugged my light. So anyway, that's why you can't see me anymore. But anyway, Ebron, definitely worth a little bit of speculative ad in the future in case if he has a good matchup, kind of gross, but he might be a decent matchup. A dependent tight end that gets you some opportunity. Logan Thomas is the other wide receiver. Oh God, I'm completely. My brain is melting because of this light. I'm gonna fix it right now. You talk about Logan Thomas.
Okay, Logan Thomas. He had a lot of hype after week 1, and then
there we go.
Disappointed against the Cardinals.
There we go.
And then he kind of had the exact same week this past week against the Browns.
You can see me again.
Now the good thing about Logan Thomas though is he's still getting decent amount of targets. He got 8, 9, and 7 targets.
Yeah.
First 3 weeks of the season. So he was getting 8 targets a week on average. That's pretty good. But he is touchdown dependent to be a start. So I think he's similar to Eric Ebron, where I think if you're streaming tight ends and he has a good matchup, you can start him. But other than that, he's not really anything special.
A final guy, Jimmy Graham, really fast. Had a good week against Chicago. I think Nick Foles is going to kind of use him. I really don't want to buy into Jimmy Graham because he's an old man tight end that hasn't done anything.
I don't want to buy into Jimmy Graham either.
I would my point is keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
Make sure
good point. Yeah, keep an eye on him.
Just watch him.
Nick Foles uses him.
If you listen to our podcast, we'll tell you what to do and when to do it, I guess.
Great advice.
You know, this is an article that was written was released yesterday by Bobby Campbell, one of our writers. He talked about booms and busts for the week, and at the bottom of the article, I noticed he took a little dig at me. He said, "Listen to Rick more than Morgan because Morgan told me to draft Miles Sanders." I believe Rick was on that bandwagon, and I don't see what's wrong with Miles Sanders. He scored 31 points in 2 weeks.
I was on that bandwagon. You were a little higher on him than I was, but I still love Miles Sanders.
Bro, he has
and I still
13
love
targets in 2 weeks.
Yeah, dude. And
the Eagles are just trash.
His yards per carry was pretty good too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he averaged 5.5 yards a carry.
He's getting almost 25 to 26 touches a game, which at some point is going to explode. So,
yeah. I mean,
if you listen to this podcast, Bobby, and you get all the way to the end, bless your soul. Also, I'm right about Miles Sanders. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It's been an interesting podcast. Waiver wires are in the book for week 4. Don't forget to check out our website at thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and the Instagram, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, Fantasy Champs.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at @TheFFChamps.